Welcome in. It's the eve of the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. The Senior Bowl rosters are beginning to be announced. What better time than to do a mock draft than right now? No trades in this one. We're going to get right into it. News this week: Cliff Kingsbury is interviewing for the OC position with the Chicago Bears, kind of giving their hand away that Caleb Williams is going to be the pick at the top of the draft. Justin Fields will be moving on in a trade, but Caleb will be the new quarterback for the Chicago Bears in 2024 and beyond. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders. It's looking like they are locked into a quarterback as well. Me personally, and I know a lot of others out there, have Drake May at the University of North Carolina as their second quarterback. So I believe Washington is going to go there. New owner, new general manager, front office, coaching staff. It's all brand new to bring in Drake May. Funny enough, replacing Sam Howell, just how he replaced him at North Carolina just a few years ago. Now, here we are with the New England Patriots. This is where the draft starts to get interesting. They announced Gerard Mayo as their new heir apparent for Bill Belichick. Not really sure how they're going to go. There's so much turmoil on the roster. There's so many holes to fix. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see a trade back scenario, acquire more draft capital, acquire more pieces to build up. So since we're not doing trades, I'm just going to go ahead and take the best player available. And this player's number one on my big board. When you take out positional value of the quarterbacks at all their positions, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's ready to step into the league and be a top 10 NFL wide receiver right away. But before we go any further, welcome in, friends, to the Banners Fly Forever football channel. This is Dan Toomey here. We are providing you all the draft content you need, football reviews, film analysis. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on all our socials. We are in for a wonderful 2024, having content coming out all year long. Now we're here with the Arizona Cardinals. We mentioned before, no trades. This is probably another spot where we could see a trade because, as you can feel, there is another quarterback on the board. Jaden Daniels, the Heisman winner. Is he somebody that teams are going to be looking to trade up for? You have a number of teams further down the draft board, Atlanta, Las Vegas, the Giants maybe, that could be looking to move up for a quarterback. But in this case, Arizona, they just got to take the best player available. You know, Kyler Murray is back. He's going to be the locked-in franchise quarterback for the next few years. And I think they're just going to address the wide receiver room. Malik Neighbors at LSU, he would be the number one wide receiver on a lot of people's big boards if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison Jr. being such a generational talent. Marquise Brown, his future in Arizona is kind of uncertain. So Malik Neighbors will join a receiver room with Rondale Moore and, Michael Wilson, who had a phenomenal rookie year to make that offense that much stronger. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Brandon Staley is out. They are still looking for their head coach. They're still looking for a leader of that roster. Justin Herbert, he is locked into his extension. He will be there. So it's an enticing job because of the quarterback. But unfortunately, the rest of the roster is not looking great. There's potential cut candidates in Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams. That roster could look a lot different at the start of the 2024 season as they look now. So in my opinion, I think you go out there and you get Justin Herbert some protection. Joe Alt is my number one tackle, but honestly, him and Fashanu, I wouldn't complain about anybody having them in either order. So we're going to draft Joe Alt out of Notre Dame here and solidify that protection in front of your obvious franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. Next up we have is the New York Giants. Now, this is a team that has invested in the offensive line in the first round for a number of years going, in the past, and it hasn't worked out. They haven't gotten the production out of the players that they're wanting. They did fire their offensive line coach, which I think is a big factor in, those players like Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal not producing the way that Giants fans come to expect and hope. Daniel Jones, he was signed to that contract extension. He missed a lot of the year with an injury, and to be honest, didn't look that great while he was out there. I think this could be the landing spot for Jaden Daniels, but this is definitely something that we would be playing around with throughout the pre-draft process, doing different mocks, seeing how it feels different ways, and trying to lock on to what would be the best feel for that New York Giants roster. We have the Tennessee Titans here picking at number 7. Mike Vrabel is gone. They haven't found their head coach yet, but the one thing you can agree on when looking at this Titans roster is that the offensive line is in dire needs of help. They drafted Skoranek in the first round last year. He played phenomenally at guard. They didn't test him out at tackle, which I was surprised. Being a lost season, you're starting a rookie second round quarterback, Will Levis. Like, why not put Skoronski on tackle, see how he does? But they didn't try that out. So the offensive line is still something that they're going to want to address. And luckily for them, Olu Fashanu, a tackle out of Penn State, top 2 tackle in this class, is still there. So he's going to be an immediate plug and play starter for the Tennessee Titans. And if they keep Skoronski at left guard, they put Fashanu at left tackle. That's a very solid duo on the left side of the offensive line for Will Levis to protect his blind side. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. Bill Belichick has had a number of interviews with the Falcons so far. This roster is actually pretty decent. It's not missing a lot of pieces besides, obviously, the number one piece being the quarterback position. Now, in this mock, the top 3 quarterbacks are off the board. I still think this is early for a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix Jr. or even a JJ McCarthy, who's got some first round conversations going right now. So I think that the quarterback position is something that Atlanta addresses through free agency or trade. Chicago took Caleb Williams at the top of this draft, so Justin Fields is a name that'll be out there on the trade market. And then you have, some potential free agents like even a Ryan Tannehill coming in to signing with the Falcons. So in this case, they're going to go with my number 3 wide receiver, Rome Odunze. So you're going to pair up Drake London, Rome, Kyle Pitts, Bijan. It's going to be a great offense. It just needs a person to help distribute the ball and a play caller who's going to get the ball distributed. So very interested to see what the Falcons put together. I would not be surprised for this team to do a quick turnaround and be competing for a playoff spot in 2024 and beyond. The Chicago Bears are up again here at the number 9 pick. We took Caleb Williams at the top of the draft, and now they're lucky enough to have 2 top 10 picks. And you got to think, where is Chicago going to go? They already went with the offense. I think this pick is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And I think they're going to draft an edge defender to operate alongside Montez Sweat. And now a lot of people have different edge defenders as their top edge player on their big boards. I'm going to go with Verse here out of Florida State. He's got a lot of athletic tools, and I think he would work well with Sweat. Eberflus was retained as the head coach, and we got to remind ourselves he is a defensive-minded head coach. So one of these picks they're going to use on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, number 1's Caleb, so number 9 is going to go for the defense. Next up, we have the New York Jets. Listen, 2024 is it. Aaron Rodgers is back. He's going to be healthy. They have to go all in and win a title this year, or the trade was for nothing. And that offensive line was not great. That was the one reason that the Jets struggled so much the past couple years. So our choices are either, our tackle 3, or, you start looking towards the interior of the line. But I think their interior is pretty solid. So I'm going to grab J.C. Latham here out of Alabama, put him along this offensive line with a, fresh Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully those New York Jets can compete in the AFC East in 2024. We're now outside the top 10. We got the Minnesota Vikings picking at number 11. Kirk Cousins, will he be back? I think they signed him to a contract extension. Obviously, the Justin Jefferson contract is on the horizon. The defense played really well with Brian Flores there. Very aggressive defense, blitzing a lot. And a defense that blitzes so much, you kind of got to rely on your secondary to really be lockdown type people. You need some lockdown corners. So I think a selection like Nate Wiggins here, adding to that secondary, is something that will really help the Minnesota Vikings compete in the NFC North in 2024. Now, here we have the Denver Broncos, a very interesting situation. You have Russell Wilson kind of out. Um, the money thing, they're still trying to work out, but signs are kind of pointing that Russell Wilson might be on his way out of the building. Sean Payton was brought in, and he's looking for a quarterback that can operate his system, a quarterback that's going to be a distributor who's going to operate over the middle of the field. And this might surprise some people, but I think that quarterback is here in the first round for them. And I think that's going to be Bo Nix, quarterback formerly of Auburn, out of Oregon recently. I think Sean Payton's going to be bringing a quarterback like Nix to operate the offense the way he wants to operate it. And we got to remember the Denver Broncos were on a pretty good streak at the end of the 2023 season. So don't be surprised for them to make some noise with a rookie quarterback under center in 2024. Las Vegas Raiders with the 13th pick. They haven't locked on to their head coach yet. It's a very common trend amongst the top 15 picks. Teams looking for new head coaches. A lot of the players and a lot of staff are polling for interim head coach Antonio Pierce to be the guy. We'll see if that's the way they go. But regardless, we have to look for ways to improve this roster. And I think the slip has gone too far for tight end Brock Bowers. I know they drafted Michael Mayer last year in the second round, but Brock Bowers is a true generational talent at the tight end position. So, you bring in Bowers, you have Mayer, you can play a lot of 12 personnel with both tight ends on the field at the same time. And kind of runs sort of like an old school football approach where, you only have two wide receivers, one running back, two tight ends. And it really gives you the options to, ground and pound, run the ball down their throat, or, utilize the RPO game and the passing game in that way for whatever quarterback is under center for the Raiders in 2024. Pick 14 is the New Orleans Saints. Um, they still have Dennis Allen as their head coach. They are playing in a generally weaker NFC South. You have the Buccaneers are hitting magic right now. Baker Mayfield, the Saints were the preseason favorite to win this division. And now, as usual, Mickey Loomis is going to have to deal with cap hell as the Saints are over the cap by, I think, 70 plus million already. But don't be surprised when they get that all the way down to, a reasonable level. Now, at wide receiver, you have Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, they have to make a decision on. And then you got some other pieces there. I wouldn't be surprised if they go with another wide receiver here. And Brian Thomas Jr. is the next wide receiver on my board, bringing another weapon to help that offense, to God help Derek Carr. He's not looked good this year, but you would hope that if you put enough weapons around him, you'll get some positive production out of him. Now at 15, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson looked very promising during the early parts of the season. Unfortunately, he was hurt almost every game, and that those injuries eventually added up, and he did miss significant time. So you have to think like, how can we help Richardson in the best way possible? And I think that's going to be by addressing the offensive line. And we're going to take our first interior offensive lineman here. I'm sorry, PFF has him as a tackle, I believe. Yes, Graham Barton out of Duke. Very good player, and he does have the flexibility to play inside or outside. So you grab a player like that, and you can, kind of adjust him to where you want to put him along the offensive line to play with players, like Quentin Nelson, all pro guards. Seattle Seahawks here at 16. Now, Pete Carroll is out as the head coach, and he is in a front office position, which I don't hate because, you think of Pete Carroll draft classes, they were always very strong. I know he didn't have the final say on all those draft moves, but, having a positive voice inside the building is great. There are questions about what does this now mean for Geno Smith, and other players that are currently on the roster. Is this a reset of the roster? Are they entering a rebuilding phase? But for me, I think the player that's fallen too far so far on this draft is Dallas Turner, the edge defender out of Alabama. And as you can see, as we get to pick 15 and below, there's going to be a lot of value along the defensive side of the ball. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars here at 17. Very disappointing season for them. Um, Trevor Lawrence didn't look that great, but his playmakers weren't giving him a lot of help. Calvin Ridley was the Hail Mary signing to hopefully turn around this offense, and he just didn't produce the way people were hoping that he would produce. They have Josh Allen is up for a new contract, so you got to think, what way is Jacksonville going to go? And I think getting Trevor another weapon is important. And I think we're going to go here with uh, hmm, that's an interesting question. Um, I think Troy Franklin would be a great pick here. Get some vertical speed, get a deep threat, and really open up this passing attack. Because still got Ingram, you still got the tight end, you still got Travis Etienne out of the backfield for that short passing game. But Troy Franklin can add some, deep play versatility to that Jaguars offense. Cincinnati Bengals at 18, they definitely weren't expecting to pick here. Um, Safety play has always been a question for them this past year since losing Jesse Bates to the Falcons last offseason. So Cooper DeJean is a player who played corner, but a lot of people are saying he can project to safety at the next level. So let's add him to the defense, and with a healthy Joe Burrow, hopefully the Bengals are, back into a playoff run in 2024. Los Angeles Rams, we are now into our wild card losers. Matthew Stafford and basically a group of teenagers. They really put together a nice run. So the Rams have a great building block with a young roster. So now you go into a lot of these players' year twos. Matthew Stafford is another year older, unfortunately. So we're going to go back to that edge well in this class because there's a lot of value still left on the board. Now, Latu out of UCLA, this is a player that medicals are really going to determine where he lands, in the first round. He was forced to medically retire at one point and had to transfer to UCLA to get doctors to clear him. So watch out for his name around the combine. It's going to be very interesting to see once NFL doctors get their hands on him what the NFL drafting community has to say, because he's a very productive player out of UCLA. Just those medicals are going to be a huge issue. And unfortunately, people like myself and others who work in the draft content space won't get access to those documents. Pick 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe the most surprising playoff team. Mason Rudolph led them down the stretch to a playoff wild card spot, and Kenny Pickett was kind of like took a back burner. His name wasn't anywhere. You never saw him on the sidelines during games. Tomlin came out and said that Pickett is our QB1, which is easy to say because Mason Rudolph is a free agent, and they're not going to be starting Trubisky over Kenny Pickett. So regardless of what the quarterback situation is, I feel like we need to help that quarterback with an offensive line pick. Excuse me. And we're going to go with center Jackson Powers Johnson out of the University of Oregon. This is a great player who's going to come in and start day one and help that Pittsburgh offensive line, help the running game, improve. We saw a lot of improvements in the offense once Matt Canada was gone. So now we start improving those player personnel packages, and we could see Pittsburgh take a step forward next year. Miami Dolphins pick 21, disappointing end to the year, the way they started the season versus the way they ended. They got a freeze out basically in Kansas City last week. So now you have to think, what can they add to that team to really take the next step forward? And I think improving the offensive line is going to be a big help for the way Mike McDaniels runs that offense. Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State, he's another one of those players that is play tackle, but projects maybe as a guard at the next level. But he's just a good player that you want to get into the building and see, where he can fit in and contribute to your starting roster in 2024. Philadelphia Eagles at pick 22. Another very disappointed team. 10-1 at one point to lose to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the wild card round. A lot of questions surrounding, the coaching staff, Sirianni, like where they're going to go going forward. And I think that defensive back is easily something that they need to address in the offseason. Down the stretch, they were not playing very well. Kool-Aid McKinstry is my next corner up out of Alabama. Besides having one of the most fun names in the draft, he's also one of the most fun players to watch. So he'll get in there and hopefully help solidify that Eagles secondary. Next, pick 23. Who would have knew it? The Houston Texans. This is the Cleveland Browns pick. Houston Texans are picking at 23. Their actual pick will be coming up later in the draft and doesn't have a solid spot, which is crazy to think about that people are talking about that as a top 5 pick last year. So we're at this point in the draft where I think this player would have gone earlier. We just haven't found a spot for him. I don't expect him to fall to 23 in the actual draft, but we're talking about Jerzon Newton out of Illinois, a very powerful defensive tackle that's going to slide right into that defense and help players like Will Anderson have an even better 2024 season. Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy is back. Jerry Jones came out and said specifically that McCarthy is back. So, we have to start working on helping that roster improve. I think easy place they want to address is the secondary. We have Trayvon Diggs coming back from injury next year. Deron Bland looked really good. Stephon Gilmore, I don't think will be back for 2024. So we're going to grab the next Alabama corner in Terrion Arnold. He's going to be added to that Dan Quinn defense and hopefully help the Cowboys have a better season than they did have in 2023. Now we're on to teams that are still active in the playoffs. These spots, 25 on, are still up for grabs, so we'll see the way they shake out after this weekend. We got the upstart Green Bay Packers with, hey, Jordan Love, he looks like the next one. Favre, Rodgers, Love, quick succession plan for the Packers. So now, how do we help this team improve going forward? And I think grabbing another edge defender would be a big help for the defense. So I have Braylon Trice out of Washington as my next edge defender. Great value here for the Green Bay Packers at number 25. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team at one point that's being mocked to pick in the top 10, is now still alive in the divisional round. You got Baker Mayfield, I'm sure, is going to get a new contract. I'm sure they will find a way to bring Mike Evans back. So we want to get some help for them along the offensive line. We're going to go with tackle Amarius Mims at the University of Georgia. He will bookend the right side. You got Jedrick Wills on the left, and hopefully Baker Mayfield and offense looks just as good in 2024 as they did in 2023. Now, pick 27 belongs to the Arizona Cardinals currently, but it is destiny is determined by the Houston Texans, which, like I said earlier, was quite funny because when this trade happened over almost a year ago this time, people were saying it could have been 2 top 5 picks for the Arizona Cardinals. So now the Cardinals are here back up again at pick 27. And we got to think, how can we further help this team along? And I think defense is another place that we should go to help the Arizona Cardinals. And we're going to go back to the edge class, and we're going to grab Penn State's Chop Robinson. This is a player that he's a Penn State player. He's going to test phenomenally well at the combine, and his draft stock is going to shoot up once the athletic and testing numbers come out. All right, pick 28 is the Kansas City Chiefs here. We got to get Mahomes more weapons. I think that they definitely need a vertical deep threat who can catch the ball. For me, that's going to be Xavier Legette out of South Carolina would be the next player that would be in my wide receiver rankings. Finally, we have the Detroit Lions at pick 30, down to our last 3 picks. I'm sorry, Buffalo Bills at 29. I was looking one ahead. Bills at 29. Secondary is something that needs to be invested upon. So we have next player we're going to add to this team is safety Cam Kitchens out of the University of Miami. Their safety duo is starting to get a little bit older. So, starting to restock that position ahead of time is the move to make here. Detroit Lions with pick 30. The roar has been restored. And I think they need more help at the corner position. A secondary is definitely going to be the pick here for the Detroit Lions. And Georgia always puts out amazing defensive players. So why not draft another Georgia player here in the first round with Kamari Lassiter, cornerback out of Georgia? All right, final 2 picks. We have the San Francisco 49ers at pick 31. this is a really good roster, but you got to start thinking ahead about age, specifically with Trent Williams. He is getting older. He's still playing at the top of his game, but let's take advantage of that strength and having the ability to have an understudy for him. And that's going to be Jordan Morgan, the tackle out of the University of Arizona. Maybe he starts at right tackle and then eventually moves over to left tackle after Trent retires. But having him work with Trent and kind of learning the tools of the trade will be a huge help. Then finally, you got the Baltimore Ravens here. I think this would be a great spot for a team to trade up for somebody like a Michael Penix Jr. or like a JJ McCarthy to get that fifth-year option. So maybe Baltimore doesn't even make this pick. But we're doing no trades in this spot. So, we're going to go grab another wide receiver, another weapon. And that's going to be, for me, Keon Coleman, big bodied wide receiver out of Florida State. He's, a gulp and get it type of player. And I think he's going to make a great addition to the Baltimore Ravens offense. Keep Todd Monken, and according to that mock, they're Super Bowl champions. So maybe run it back. But I just want to thank you guys today for taking time to stop by and check out our YouTube channel. If you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, get the notifications for both when we go live and when we have, recordings coming up. So you guys enjoy your football this wild card weekend, and we will catch you next time.